Syracuse gets their man.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. On today's show, you know the big story. You know the big headline. 4-star running back, number 1 overall rated player in the state of New York, Elijah Kimble, verbally commits to Syracuse football. We will compare Elijah Kimble to some of the other top commitments of the Fran Brown era and how much Fran Brown has significantly elevated Syracuse football recruiting, because Elijah Kimble in the Fran Brown era is certainly not a one-off. We will also discuss where the 2027 class sits right now and what we should look forward to in the future with the class of 2027. But first and foremost, let's give our reaction to Syracuse football landing Elijah Kimble. And the initial reaction is they got their guy. They got the guy they were targeting for quite a while, for over a year in the making, with Elijah Kimble. Number 1 rated player in the state of New York, 4-star running back. This staff paved the way to get Elijah Kimble. This was a staff that had 2 talented running backs already committed to them. And they decided to mutually part ways with Senior Brooks and Xavier Bala because they had something else in mind. Step 1 of that plan was landing Tyleik Lewis the other day, earlier this week. They got him, which was great. But this was the crown jewel. This was the guy. And it's not to say they don't like Tyleik Lewis or any of the other running backs, but this was the guy the staff wanted. 4-star running back, Elijah Kimble, who is the second running back commit of the class of 2027. Let's go over Elijah Kimble. He is a 5'10" running back, 180 pounds, out of Buffalo, New York. Again, the number 1 overall rated player in the state of New York. It is the second time in the Fran Brown tenure that he has gotten the number 1 rated player in the state of New York. The first of which was in the class of 2025 with Quante Gillians. In 3 high school seasons, Elijah Kimble has rushed for over 5,300 yards, which is already great, 5,300 yards in 3 years. But it gets even better. He averages nearly 9 yards a carry. This is according to 24/7 Sports. So take it for what it's worth. But this is a big deal. Those stats are absurd. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Elijah Kimble is going to come to Syracuse, rush for 5,300 yards in 3 years, and he's going to average 9 yards a carry. That is not realistic at all. But those are big-time numbers. And there's a reason why this guy is rated where he is rated. What stands out about Elijah Kimble, you scour the internet, you talk to people, but the main thing everyone seems to say about Elijah Kimble is the speed. That is what jumps out with Elijah Kimble. And obviously this staff was high enough on him to where, again, they said goodbye to 2 talented running backs, in part because they wanted to have room for Elijah Kimble in the class of 2027. As far as ratings are concerned with Elijah Kimble, always on this show, we are going to give the disclaimer about ratings. They are not perfect. They are not an exact science. I'm actually not the one in charge of assigning these ratings. The ratings are meant for the public. They're meant to give you and I a good idea of what to expect from a player. It's a forecast, a projection, if you will. But just because you're a 5-star doesn't mean you're going to make it. Just because you're a 3-star doesn't mean you're not going to make it. Syracuse has numerous examples of 3-star players turning out to be NFL players. They're not perfect, but they give you a decent idea of what to expect. Let's now talk about the ratings with Elijah Kimble. ESPN, 4-star running back, top 300 player overall in the country. On 3, 4-star, just outside the top 300. You go to 24/7 Sports, he is listed as a 3-star. but he has been given a rating of 89. For those that don't know, to be a 4-star on 24/7 Sports, you need a rating of a 90. So he's right there. Maybe if he has a big senior season, maybe he gets a little bit more attention, a little bit more buzz, he can jump up to a 4-star on 24/7 Sports. And also, the 24/7 Sports composite tool has him listed as a 4-star player just outside top 300 overall. So, summarizing all the ratings with Elijah Kimble, you're talking about a guy who's a near consensus 4-star player and around the top 300 overall in the nation. And for what it's worth, this is the highest rated running back of the Fran Brown era. Elijah Kimble surpasses Yassine Willis, who was in the class of 2024, Fran Brown's first recruiting class with Syracuse football. Now, as far as path to playing time is concerned, Elijah Kimble's first season with Syracuse will be in 2027. So if you're wondering, watching Syracuse football this year, where is Elijah Kimble? Well, he is still in high school, so he will not be playing for the Orange. He will still be in high school. His first game will be in 2027. So he's still got over a year until he actually plays for the Orange. But this is someone who I think is potentially talented enough to where he gets significant playing time for Syracuse in 2027. It is on the table. I'm not necessarily predicting it right now. I think it is way too soon. But it's on the table. He enters as the starting running back in 2027. Because if you look at the long-term outlook right now of Syracuse's running back room, the path to playing time is there. It kind of reminds me of 2020. And hopefully Syracuse this season does not have a 2020 season. But it reminds me of 2020 in the sense of where the running back room sits. In 2020, they did not have a clear-cut RB1 on the roster. And that gave Sean Tucker, who was a true freshman at the time, the path to playing time, the opportunity to snatch the RB1 job, and he did snatch the RB1 job. And obviously with Sean Tucker, the rest is history. The following season, he sets the Syracuse single-season rushing record. And then has a pretty good junior season, goes to the NFL, and he's actually still in the NFL right now. Is that going to happen with Elijah Kimble? Who knows? But the reason why I bring that up with 2020 is because think about the roster right now as it stands. Your two running backs are Amon Miller, a Jackson State transfer, FCS school. Juwan Johnson, who was at LSU. Yes, that's great, but has not done a whole lot in college football so far. I hope those guys have big years. Don't get me wrong. I said this with Neil Eiler from Inside the Loud House on Friday. I hope those guys have big years for Syracuse football. Having said that, those guys are unproven. And because they're unproven, we'll see what happens this season. But it is on the table to where Elijah Kimble, as a true freshman, ends up becoming the RB1, or at least has a very clear path to playing time as a true freshman. And again, I want you to keep in mind how much this staff really values him, how much they wanted him. Clearly, they think he's really talented. And so I do think that he is going to get significant playing time in year one with Syracuse football, which again will be in 2027. What was your initial reaction to Syracuse landing 4-star running back Elijah Kimble? Comment your thoughts right now in the comment section below. Coming up here on Locked On Syracuse, we will talk about the class of 2027 as it stands right now. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. And now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match. With every goal pays, bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals mean more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. Team USA is in the round of 16. They are facing off against Belgium. Belgium is really good. I do think that they are beatable for Team USA. But like I said, I think it was on last show or the episode before, the World Cup starts now. U.S. has been in the round of 16 before. They've actually played Belgium in the round of 16. Hopefully Tim Howard can have their goalie for Team USA can have a Tim Howard-esque performance like he had in 2014, except that they actually win it this time around. But this is going to be a tough game for Team USA. Hopefully they can come out on top, and hey, you can bet it over on FanDuel. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. Let's go over where the class of 2027 for Syracuse football stands right now after the commitment of four-star running back Elijah Kimble. So as far as the amount of players are concerned, there are 24 verbal commitments with Elijah Kimble now in the fold. The class, as far as rankings are concerned, is bordering on top 30 nationally. Will that hold? Well, to put it bluntly, I think they're going to need a little bit more Elijah Kimble type recruits to commit to Syracuse in order for that to hold. But still, this class is tracking to be a good one for Fran Brown and Syracuse football. Maybe it's not quite going to be a top 20, top 15, even top 25 just yet when all is said and done, but it is still tracking quite well. And it just shows you again how Fran Brown has significantly elevated Syracuse football recruiting ever since he took over for the Orange with his first recruiting class in 2024. As far as a breakdown is concerned with the current class of 2027, the class is pretty evenly split, and that is a good thing. It means that they don't necessarily have to focus on one particular position of need. You have 11 offensive players now in the class. You have 10 defensive players, and you have 3 guys that are listed as athletes. Those are guys that could probably play offense or defense at the next level. We'll see what Fran Brown and his staff decide to do with those players. Who are the 4 stars in the class of 2027 now with Elijah Kimble? These are guys who are rated at least 4 stars or better on at least one major recruiting service. That is the criteria for this. One major recruiting service says you're a 4-star, you're a 4-star. There are 3 players. You got, obviously, running back Elijah Kimble. That's the crown jewel of the class so far. But you also got safety Jalen Welch. That's a big deal. And wide receiver Shannon Harris. So as far as what the goal right now with Syracuse football recruiting as it stands in the class of 2027, the goal is to secure more high-quality commitments. And I'm not necessarily saying that that is what is going to happen. I mean, I hope it happens, but that should be the goal for Syracuse football moving forward in the class of 2027. Because the Orange right now, they have a good number of commits. They have 24 guys that are committed in the class of 2027. That's a good number, especially in early July. Like their class for 2027 is almost full. We'll see how many more players they decide to add to it, but 24 at this point is a very good number. And like I mentioned earlier, it's balanced. They got a good number of offense, a good number of defense. They got some athletes in the mix. So there's no real key area that they need to target. Maybe they could look to add another quarterback because they only have one quarterback, but we'll see. They might be content with just one for now, right? So hopefully the next step is, okay, you have a lot of players. You have some good ones in there and maybe some diamonds in the rough. We'll see. Elijah Kimble's your crown jewel. Can you get more? Can you get more players that are high quality, that are 4-star or better in the class of 2027? I don't think there are going to be any 5-star recruits in this cycle. I mean, I would be happily proven wrong on it. Last year, Syracuse had Calvin Russell, and that was obviously a huge deal for this program, getting their first 5-star player in over 20 years. I don't anticipate that happening this time around, so maybe it'll happen in the class of 2028. But another focus for Syracuse football is retaining the guys they already have verbally committed. Because none of these commitments ultimately matter if they decide to not sign with Syracuse by the time they are ready to actually sign, when they are eligible to put pen to paper, whether it's the early signing period or the later signing period. The early one, I believe, is in December. The later one is, I don't know when, because most players sign, honestly, in December, so it doesn't really particularly matter. But either way, You got to retain the guys you already have verbally committed. And that includes Elijah Kimble, because I already know what some of you are going to say in the comment section. Like, look, this is great. This is awesome. But you do actually have to keep Elijah Kimble. Just because he decides to verbally commit to you doesn't mean he's ultimately going to sign with you when December rolls around. Am I coming on here right now and saying, hey, guys, you should be on alert, Elijah Kimble may flip from Syracuse? Absolutely not. That is not what I am doing. I do expect that he is ultimately going to sign with Syracuse. I'm not really worried about it. A lot of people were worried last year about Calvin Russell, and if he was going to flip from Syracuse, he ultimately decided to stay with Syracuse. So I'm not particularly worried about it. I'm just pointing out that this is a verbal commitment, just like everyone else right now, just like the 23 other guys besides Elijah Kimble in the class of 2027, and that Fran Brown and his staff, in addition to hopefully getting more high-quality commitments, they're also going to have to maintain what they already have. Are you hoping for, I shouldn't even ask that question. Are you hoping for more four-star commits? Of course you're hoping for more four-star commits, but do you think that Syracuse is going to land another four-star or two? Feel free to leave your thoughts right now in the comments section below, as well as your initial reaction to Syracuse landing four-star running back Elijah Kimble. Now, coming up here on this show, we will talk about some of the other top commitments of the Fran Brown era. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. Let's compare Elijah Kimble to some of the other top commitments of the Fran Brown era. And as we will detail in this segment, fortunately for all of us, for Syracuse, Fran Brown, his entire staff, players, us fans, this is nothing new. That's a good thing. Getting a guy like Elijah Kimble, a four-star running back, number one overall rated player in New York State, is not a novel concept anymore with Syracuse football. They have shown that they can consistently get four-star players on an annual basis. Like I said earlier, it's not like they are getting every four-star and five-star guy that's out there, but pretty much every year they've gotten a guy like Elijah Kimble in their recruiting class, and that wasn't really always the case prior to Fran Brown. So as far as ratings-wise are concerned, Elijah Kimble is not the top commitment of the Fran Brown era. He's up there, but he is not the top commitment of the Fran Brown era. They have several guys that are ahead of him. There are definitely at least three recruits of the Fran Brown era that are at least rated higher or were rated higher than Elijah Kimble. And that's not to downplay Elijah Kimble. That's really to elevate what Syracuse football recruiting has become. The fact that he is not the best Syracuse recruit in 4 years. He's not. But he is still a heck of a prospect. The three guys that are definitely ahead of Elijah Kimble as far as where they were rated in high school when they ultimately decided to commit to Syracuse, you have 2026 five-star wide receiver Calvin Russell. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. He's a five-star player. He was the first five-star to commit to Syracuse in over 2 decades. Unfortunately, we are not going to see him on the field all that much in the 2026 season, if at all. He tore his Achilles a couple of months ago, so best wishes to him in his recovery. He seemed like he had successful surgery and all that, so hopefully all is okay with Calvin Russell in the future. But hey, he was a heck of a recruit when Syracuse got him, and hopefully when he sees the field for the Orange, he becomes a big-time wide receiver for this team. In 2025, you had consensus 4-star Demetres Samuel, and so far, it looks like he has hit. It's only been 1 year with Demetres Samuel, but as a 17-year-old true freshman, he was named one of the 20 best freshmen in all of America by ESPN. He was the second highest rated player per Pro Football Focus on Syracuse's defense last year. I'm looking forward to watching Demetres Samuel this upcoming season. What about you? Feel free to leave your thoughts right now in the comments section below. How big of a leap do you think Demetres Samuel is going to take this upcoming season? And then in 2024, you had consensus 4-star Jamie Tremble. Right now with Jamie Tremble, he is an example of, hey, a guy can be high rated, but not end up working out. That's what it is right now, at least. So far, it looks like a miss, and it happens. You're not going to hit on all of these guys. he was a big-time tight end prospect. He has not succeeded as being a tight end at Syracuse, but the silver lining with Jamie Tremble is that we talked about this a few days ago on this channel. Maybe he can develop into a really good linebacker. It's on the table for him. He played a lot of defense last year. Now he's entering his third year of college football. Can he be a really good linebacker for Syracuse? Maybe. And if so, he can go from someone that, relatively speaking, was pretty disappointing, giving his rating being a consensus 4-star, to, hey, he's actually a pretty heck of a player. It just took a position change for us to realize that with him. But those three players, Tremble, Samuel, Russell, all three of them were higher rated in high school than Elijah Kimble. And then you have the rest, which is essentially where Elijah Kimble sits. He sits amongst this whole group of 4-star players that Syracuse has gotten over the last few years. In 2024, they got Emmanuel Ross. Unfortunately, that did not work out. They got King Joseph Edwards. That unfortunately did not work out. They got Marcellus Barnes. That one worked out. Marcellus Barnes is a good player, but he transferred to SMU. So it didn't necessarily work out for us, but it worked out for an ACC team. Good for them, I guess. Yassine Willis, I think, was a mixed bag at Syracuse, but he ultimately transferred to Kansas, and who knows, maybe he can have a big-time career at Kansas, and we would look back on that and say, man, I wish we could have kept Yassine Willis. And then you have Caden Brown, who unfortunately it did not work out for Syracuse. Again, ratings are not an exact science. You can be a 4-star player like some of these guys, and it does not work out. It happens. In 2025, there were no other 4-star players besides Demetres Samuel. And then you got 2026, and all of these players right now are pending results. They have not yet taken the field for Syracuse in an actual game. But you have Cameron Wilson off the edge. You have Darius Hughes, a defensive back, who I think is going to get a lot of playing time. You got Alexander Hastel, a defensive lineman. You got Amari Goff, a wide receiver who knows, with the current wide receiver room, he could certainly see the field a lot this upcoming season. And then he also got Jarius Rogers off the edge as a 4-star player. And then in 2027, we talked about this earlier, but you have Elijah Kimble, who's a 4-star running back, Jalen Welch, a 4-star defensive back, and Shannon Harris, a ESPN 4-star wide receiver. So in total, I know I threw out a bunch of names to you all, ladies and gentlemen, but in total, by my count, Fran Brown has landed 16 players that were rated a 4-star or better during his tenure, independent of the results. And I understand the results are ultimately what matter. I don't think we would care if Syracuse only got 2-star players as long as they won games, because that's really what matters, winning and losing. That's it, right? But independent of results, you have to admit that that is pretty impressive, what Fran Brown has been able to do at Syracuse. And it goes back to my earlier point about how it is awesome that Syracuse got Elijah Kimble. I'm thrilled that they got him. I'm so happy that they got him. I'm not shortchanging Elijah Kimble here. I said at the very top of the show, or at least in the first segment, that he could see the field day one for this team and maybe be their starting running back. I don't know. It's too far out to forecast that, but it's on the table. Very talented player. Burner, has a crazy high school career going on right now. But it is not a novelty getting a guy like Elijah Kimble. 16 4-star or better players in the Fran Brown era. They're landing them pretty much year in and year out. They got it 2024, they got it 2025, they got it 2026, and in the class of 2027. Syracuse football recruiting is a little bit different now than what it used to be. That is a good thing for all of us, ladies and gentlemen. So that just about does it. Elijah Kimble, 4-star running back. We've been waiting on this for quite a while. He announces his commitment to Syracuse football. Hopefully it holds. I have no reason to believe that it will not hold. So that's awesome for the Orange. That's awesome for all of us. Feel free to leave your thoughts right now in the comments section below. And I guess if you want to make a prediction, do you think Elijah Kimble is going to be the starting running back as a true freshman? Feel free to leave your thoughts right now in the comment section below. As far as what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future, our next podcast, we will preview Syracuse football's quarterback room. We think we know who the starter is going to be, or at least I think I know who the starter is going to be. It's Steve Angeli. but who is behind him? And Fran Brown is saying that some of the guys behind him could potentially challenge Steve Angeli. So we'll dive into that on the next episode of Locked On Syracuse as we continue throughout the summer, previewing all the position groups for Syracuse football in 2026. Quarterbacks up next. And hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of the day. And hey, for your second listen, perhaps you can check out Locked On ACC with hosts Kenton Gibbs and Alex Sano. They break down the ACC. They talk a lot of football. They talk a lot of basketball and more. And sometimes they even talk about our very own Syracuse Orange. And they're able to give a independent perspective on Syracuse. They don't have a rooting interest for Syracuse. They don't have a rooting interest against Syracuse. It's independent coverage, potentially, when they discuss Syracuse. You can find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this show, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.